we're here with Robin Thompson. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Robin's a friend of mine, too, so it's nice to have you sitting here in the studio. What do you think? It's a nice little spot, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, looking down at the river.
It is. Very nice.
Talking in our little room, as we often do. I work as the Director of Community Development at the Vail Valley Partnership, and Robin is one of our most valued members in the fact that you teach a lot of our leadership classes, and that's important to us.
Well, thank you. It's fun to be a part of the Vail Valley Partnership.
Awesome.
You all do a lot for nonprofits.
Well, good. Well, you do as well, and this is your career. You are here to help nonprofits. When I walk into a nonprofit office, which I get to do frequently in my job, and I say the name Robin Thompson, I'm usually showered with chocolates and things like that. So what is it that you actually do for nonprofits? What is your business?
Right. So what I do as a nonprofit consultant is I do an assessment of their fundraising. And so it looks at things all the way from their board and what their board makeup is to what is their past history for fundraising been. And so where do we see gaps, and are we seeing numbers of donors increase? Are we seeing numbers of gifts increase? What do their events look like? And I know you and I have had discussions about nonprofit events in the Valley.
Yeah, you mean you want to do another golf tournament?
No, thank you.
Please.
And no more auctions, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, it is kind of, I guess people have been doing that for so long because it is tried and true. We know we're going to make a certain amount of money doing a golf tournament or doing a silent auction or things like that. But are you telling me that there are other options that can be just as lucrative?
Yes, and so what I tell nonprofits, when they look at the amount of labor it takes to get those auction items or to put that golf tournament on, and we do have a lot of high wealth here in the Vail Valley, and so could you just go talk to individuals and get that same amount of money and then do an event that's fun, one that doesn't have the auction or one that's not the golf tournament? And so I encourage them to just brainstorm and figure out new and different types of events.
I like that. But, maybe that's the scary part, is going and talking to those individuals. Maybe that's something that they're not qualified or excited about doing. So, this is kind of a hands-off way of raising money.
Right, in a way, but that's one of the things I help nonprofits with is I go in and do trainings, and I train people who have never been in the nonprofit world how to raise money, how to find new donors, how to move donors from one level to another.
So I want to hear about your strategies, but before we do that, before we get there, I want to backtrack just a little bit because I want to see young Robin Thompson, who, you're 32, 33 now, but young Robin Thompson in the early 90s sitting in high school and wondering what she's going to be when she grows up. I just want to know how someone gets to this point because you have a very interesting career.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was a professional speaker for 25 years and trainer, and it's interesting. I didn't pick the nonprofit world, which a lot of people that get into the nonprofit world don't choose it. It chooses them.
Okay.
And so I just happened to say there was a job as an alumni relations coordinator at a college, and I had been teaching leadership and team building, and I said I need to go in and practice what I've been teaching and lead a group and see what happens, and then I was hooked.
Yeah. When was that?
That was just over 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have been on this nonprofit track ever since. Now, how long have you been in the Valley?
So since last December.
Okay. And I know that you were relatively new, but you're one of those. You're like a new local at this point, right?
I'm a return. So my husband and I lived here in the late '80s, and I say my claim to fame was I was one of the first Beaver Creek cookie ladies that I handed out first.
I didn't know that about you.
I did. Okay. I did. So fun facts to know and tell.
There we go. All right, now let's dig into it because I want to pick your brain. And obviously we have so many different nonprofits here in town. How many nonprofits do we have?
I've been using the number 243. I think that number could be low. I think there could be more than that. But we have a lot of nonprofits.
Yes, we do. And so obviously lots of them are listening. So let's go into what are some challenges that people find. As you say, we live in a wealthy valley, and we know that. But people still find challenges in raising money. What are some of the major challenges that are across the board for, say, something small like the cycle effect, all the way up to a Habitat for Humanity or a Red Cross?
Right. And so one of the things that I continually hear, and it's interesting because I run this fundraising group where at the Avon Library, like this coming Friday, once a month, fundraisers just come and I'll do a 15-minute topic and then they just ask questions. And so one of the questions people ask is, I have this Excel spreadsheet. Do I really need a database? And you can see everybody just goes quiet because they know Robin gets on her soapbox when we talk about not having a database. I mean, you can get a free database because that's one of the things that happen is an Excel spreadsheet spreadsheet doesn't prompt you to contact people, to go out and talk to people, and databases do. So that's one of the big things I see. It doesn't matter whether they're a small nonprofit or the large nonprofits who already have a database. They need to go in and mine those databases. There is a ton of information in there that they're not using. And so when they say, oh, there's no new donors here, what are we going to do to find new donors? Well, go to your database first.
Okay.
Get that Excel spreadsheet into a database.
It's time to move that. Because, you know, what they'll say is that, no, this is my database.
Right.
But you're talking about a professionally designed program that's built to give you reminders and help you, encourage you. And All right. So that's step one.
Right. So that's one of the big things. And another is that we have board members who typically they're the ones that say, oh, you just need to go out and find those billionaires. You know, there's all those people that have signed that Bill Gates giving pledge to give all their money away before they pass away. And so my first question is, do we know them?
Yeah.
Do we have a connection to them?
Yeah.
Being in the Pacific Northwest, people would always say, well, let's just go ask Bill Gates for money.
Because he's just walking down the street. I think he's over at the coffee shop right now.
That's right. That's right. And so, but helping nonprofits say, okay, do we have a connection to them? Do they have a link to our organization? And we need those two things. I mean, we need to be sure the person has the capacity to give, or the granting foundation. But really, when we look at nonprofits and how that they bring in money, the grants piece is one of the smallest pieces. The individuals is the largest piece of that pie.
I wouldn't have thought of that. For as much time goes into grant writing and all of that. Okay.
It is. Mm-hmm. So again, go to those face-to-face, go talk to people, and a big thing is pick up the telephone. We are just deluged with emails, and so if we can just pick up the telephone and make a phone call. Somebody was just telling me yesterday that there was this one foundation that they had wanted a grant for, and they picked up the phone and called them, and the person on the other end said, sure, yeah, that sounds good. Just send me the information. And somebody said, you're kidding. I mean, they don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Because they picked up the phone, it came out of all of that email that we all get.
There we go. Okay, boy, those are some really good tips. I hope nonprofits are just writing right now. I know they're going to want to talk to you, and we'll give your information earlier. But I wanted to ask you this question because you have seen this obviously in the 80s, and you've seen it now, and you have an understanding of this community, you have an understanding of the nonprofits. So if you were to wave your magic wand, what would fundraising look like in this community? Because we know what it looks like right now.
Right. Yeah, and so one of the things I see is a lot of duplication. So out of those 243 nonprofits, we see a lot of ones that do the same thing and serve the same groups. And so this is another thing that you'll see Robin get on her soapbox about.
Please.
Is how can we work together? And so that's one of the reasons that I started the fundraising group that I did. And it's amazing as people sit around and talk and they say, oh, I've got somebody who would be perfect in that program. Or, oh, wow, I was just talking to a donor the other day, and we don't quite fit what they're looking for, but they would fit with you. And so it just warms my heart when I see people from nonprofits say, wow, so if I could wave my magic wand, it would be that a lot of these nonprofits start working together, and that we're more of a cohesive group, so that I don't hear from one more donor. I just got 10 solicitations in the mail from 10 different nonprofits. If I could hear them say, you know what, they came together and came to me as a group because I give to all these nonprofits, because what we do is we confuse the donors.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, I hadn't even thought. I'm just, my brain's running right now. Thank you. I guess that's your job, isn't it, to keep those brains running?
It is.
So challenges here in the Valley, obviously, are the confused donors and so forth. But one of the things that you mentioned earlier that I thought was interesting is working with nonprofits with their boards. Mm-hmm. It seems that when you speak to nonprofits and you say, how's your board? You get, there's a spectrum of answers, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot in the middle. Most people rave about their board, and some are like, oh, they just don't understand the mission. They're just sitting on there to sit on a board.
Right.
And so is board selection Is that an important part of this fundraising piece?
It is, and I have something I call a board decision book. And so what it does is it gives a breakdown of who you really need on your board and lets you take a look at these different skills and experiences that you need. Granted, you do need some people with some high wealth on there that can be the ones that give and go out and ask their peers for money
kind of
to
walk
help
the walk
you.
before.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
That makes sense.
But there's other people that you just need on your board, and I encourage people as part of the board decision book. It goes through and says, as a board member, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to have a living room group in your house where you invite your friends? Are you willing to come to the big gala and bid on an auction item? What are you willing to do? And then they sign it. And so sometimes, and I was just meeting with a nonprofit last night, and one of the things they said was, if we did that with our board, we would have people that would drop off. And I said, so maybe that's not a bad thing, because you only have so many positions on your board that you can fill. And so if you're filling them with people who don't help you meet the mission of the nonprofit, then you're doing the people you serve a disservice because you don't have the right makeup on your board. So I think that's one of the reasons that you hear that a lot, that it's one extreme or the other, my board's great, or my board needs to change, is because I don't think there's been strategic thought put into who goes on that board and who needs to be on it.
Very cool. Any VVP board members listening right now, we're very pleased with you, by the way. Speaking of the partnership, you gave a presentation not all that long ago to the partnership in terms of the giving of millennials. We hear this group of people demonized in so many different ways, but we also hear that they want to give back. Is there a specific strategy or strategies that work in terms of fundraising with millennials?
Yeah, and one of the things that we're really seeing in the Valley now, and maybe you've seen this too, is a lot of what we'll call the founding fathers and mothers of Vail that had second homes here, that they're now leaving. And what we see is when they leave, then they don't support the nonprofits in the Vail Valley anymore. And what's happening with some of them is they are turning over the distribution of how those gifts go to nonprofits to their kids. And a lot of their kids are millennials. Their kids are not as loyal as their parents were to the nonprofits. And because they're not as loyal, they are giving to different things. Now, that's great for nonprofits that their parents hadn't given to, but it's not good for those who have expected the gift year after year from mom and dad.
Okay.
So what we see with millennials is, yes, they are very philanthropic. They feel like that those of us that are older, that are baby boomers, have done things that aren't real great to this whole planet, and that they feel like they need to fix what we did.
Well, I don't blame them for that. Okay, I'm not demonizing them for that, but
That's right. And so they want to do things that they think are good for the world, good for the community, and so they are giving back. Matter of fact, they're being compared to the greatest generation, which is the older generation, as to their giving. And so it's a little early to tell because they're still in that younger, wage earning, having kids realm. But in the future, it looks like that they could be our big givers, and so taking over. But we need to nurture them differently than we did their parents. And the presentation I did for the Nonprofit Network was on generational giving. And so, how do we look at these different generations? Because we have Generation Z coming up too.
Ooh.
And they're the ones that are
after millennials?
It is, because millennials are Gen Y, and so that's Gen Z. And so now we're looking at what do they look like? What characteristics are they taking on that we haven't seen before?
I'm a little nervous because as a Gen Xer, then you just told me that I'm a really bad giver.
Not necessarily. Gen Xers have started volunteering more. So that's really good because their kids are now getting a little bit older, because we don't see large amounts of gifts in those middle childbearing years, not until they get a little bit older.
Well, I can, as a father of 10, 7, and 5, I can get behind that.
You can. So, nonprofit calls you and you're like, ooh.
I run a nonprofit for 3 children at my home.
That's right.
It's lovely. Robin, this is fascinating. You and I could talk for hours, and we have. But we could continue, and I'm sure people are getting so much out of this. But this is just a tease for all of you nonprofits out there. Not a tease. We wanted to help help you with this. But Robin will come to you, and she will help you. That is her job. That's what she does, and she is fantastic at it. As someone who gets to work with a lot of different nonprofits through the Vail Valley Partnership, and I'm blowing smoke at you a little bit right now. So, but I hear so many glowing things about you and about the work that you do. You change the paradigm here in the Valley, and you're doing it piece by piece, and you're doing it with so many different nonprofits. If you and your nonprofit, you the listener, want to be a part of this, Robin, how do they get in touch?
So my email is fundraiser@robinthompson.com, and that's ROBINTHOMPSON.com, or phone number 541-810-1109.
Check out robinthompson.com for more information as well. She is a fundraising what is your actual title, to be honest?
Fundraising consultant.
Fundraising consultant. There it is. I was going to call you professional, which counts too. And she's a fundraising guru. And she's a friend, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. We got more coming up from 104.7 The Mile.